Welcome back. I am so excited that you have joined me again in the Aligned Womb, Aligned You podcast. I'm Kate Nagai, and I am your host and womb guide on this journey. I'm here to help you to lean into the language of your menstrual cycle so that you can align yourself and awaken and activate to your womb wisdom to live the most inspired life. I am so excited to jump into this episode and to dive into today's topic. So let's get started. Are you ready for today's topic today? Today we are going to get deep in talking about the period, the menstruation, our bleed days, whatever you identify it as. So many of us hate this time of our cycle. So many of us dread this time. We can't wait to the day we don't bleed anymore. We just really hate the experience of having to slow down in our lives. Today in this conversation, I really want us to start to think about how we can reframe how we see and feel about our period. Because our period is actual medicine. It is a time that our body is resetting. And there's a lot of good things about our menstruation and a lot of reasons why we actually don't want it to end early, as much as we keep telling ourselves this. Before we get into this talk, I just want to make sure that I lay the groundwork here that if for some reason you don't have a cycle anymore, maybe you've had a hysterectomy, maybe you are post-menopause now, or maybe you're in that perimenopause phase where your cycle's almost done, or that it hasn't been around for months and you've kind of been excited about that it's coming to a close. I don't want you to hear this conversation and feel shame or go, oh shit, now I don't have a cycle anymore. What does that mean? Like, did I ruin my body? Or is this worst case scenario going to happen? That's not what this is about. What I want this conversation to be about is for us to feel good about having a bleed, for us to see the benefits of having a bleed. And if you don't have a bleed anymore, just know that you had a cycle. You were cyclical for many years before it had to come to its end for whatever reason. And that was medicine all on its own. Now, if you are still bleeding, this is going to be a conversation for you because this is how we now reframe how we see our cycle. So that way we can become excited about it. That way we can actually start to look forward to our menstruation. I was somebody who hated my period. I could not wait to the day I would never have to bleed again. I had a lot of shame around my period. I had a lot of gross feelings of, just dirtiness or, grossness, uncleanliness. There was just so many icky feelings that came with having a bleed. And now that I have been able to learn about the body, to shift into really operating with that sacred cycle that we discussed in the last episode, and really allow myself to rest and unfold into my menstruation is now one of my most favorite, cherished times. In fact, my favorite time of my cycle now is my inner fall, which I hated for years as well because of PMS. And now it's my favorite time. I like it way more than ovulation. I feel more at home there. And because now I feel more at home in my inner fall, I really, really appreciate and enjoy my menstruation if I let myself release and relax into it. And that's what we're going to explore today. So how can we reframe our thinking around our period? And why should we want to? Well, our period is important because it is that cleansing. It is what I was talking about before, about removing that impurities from the body. So much gets released through the blood. This is our body's way of reestablishing a balance for anything that might have been out of balance. So this is like a big reset button for our body every month. Our body is really looking, analyzing, and clearing out what needs to be cleared out. This is really potent and powerful. Now, the other really amazing thing about the menstrual cycle is that it is now being shown in science that the longer we have a menstruation, the more years we are cyclical, the more we are helping things like bone density, more things that we're helping for osteoporosis, for heart health, for our chances of diabetes, all these things that we'll experience in our older years as seniors. So the more cycles it's being shown that we have, the more health and vitality we have once we're post-menopause. And that is why we want to reframe our thinking. We want to reframe our thinking so that we can actually feel like our menstruation is a good thing, so that we actually want to invite it in to stay as long as possible, because it's going to make us have the best life in our older years. The more cycles we have, the more health and wellness that we have when we're a senior. And that is so potent and powerful in my mind. And I just think that's a good reason for me to want to. And in fact, it's really interesting because I'm in my 40s and I am in that perimenopause state. I'm just entering it. I can feel that internal shift happening. And perimenopause can be around for 10 years. So this is not like I'm knocking on the door of menopause right now, but I see little shifts happening in my cycle. And I've noticed my cycle starting to shorten. It's now shortened down to 3 days when it used to be 5. And I still don't have painful periods. My periods are starting to lighten up a bit. They're not as heavy. So these were things, little indicators that I started noticing about my blood and about my period that made me go, you know what? There's stuff that's shifting. Now, is there something that I can do to create more vitality and health in my period? So I'm actually currently seeking help with an acupuncturist who also does laser therapy for any kind of menstrual issues or womb health. And that's what we're working on. I'm not going to her because I have painful periods or I'm bleeding really heavy. I'm going to her because my exact words to her were, I need to create more vitality in my period so I have it longer. Because I want to have this period as long and as healthy and as full as I possibly can for as long as I can, in knowing that it's going to help me post-menopause. And so that's what we're working on. We're working on my cycle to create lots of vitality and lots of health in it. Because I really do want to have a strong, healthy body in my 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 100s maybe if I can get there. So reframing our thoughts around our period can be really, really powerful. And so the first reason we'd want to is because we want to actually create vitality and wellness in our older years. Second is because we want to see our period as a tool. We want to see it as something that is really keeping us healthy in the current moment as well. Now, for those of you that are on the fertility journey, the period can be a really triggering moment. It can be that moment where it's a reminder that you haven't gotten pregnant again. And that can be soul crushing. I know I've been there. What I do when I work with clients is I help them see that, yes, we want to feel into that deep emotion that we feel when our period arrives. We want to feel that sadness and that grief. We don't want to shut those emotions down. We're not into stuffing our emotions. We want to feel that, but allow ourselves the space to feel it. And then when we're ready, within a few hours to a day, flip the dialogue and go, okay, so my period is here. This means that I have a new start to a new cycle. This is the reset button. What I do now in my menstruation is going to help give my cycle that energy to have a strong follicular phase. And what I do to nourish my follicular phase is what's going to help me have a strong ovulation, strong, healthy eggs. And then what I do to support my body as it transitions into the luteal, into the fall, is going to help create vitality in my womb space for a pregnancy or for perhaps less PMS, which we all want. And then we're going to go back into a menstruation where it's going to be a cleanse again and a restart. Everything is a precursor to the other. And so reframing our thoughts around our period as rather this is happening to me, starting to reframe our thought around, okay, this is happening. I didn't get pregnant. I have a painful period. My period's bleeding so heavy. Seeing those things as, yes, they're facts, but then going, okay, but now if I allow myself to rest into it, my body's asking me to rest. My body's asking me to downturn and to really take care of itself, to be in stillness. And if I give myself that gift, can I be with the heavy period? Can I be with the pain? Can I be with the disappointment? And see that I'm resting so that way my body can do what it needs to right now to recreate a balance, to cleanse, so that way I can go in and hopefully have a healthier cycle so that the next menstruation is a different story. And that's the power right there. The reframing of the period is seeing ourselves as that our body is talking to us. Our womb is talking to us through what's happening, through the quality of blood, through the quantity of blood, through the pain that maybe we're feeling. And it's asking us to exist differently, to nurture ourselves. I once heard a nutritionist who I adore call it the period flu, which I think in so many ways is so accurate. If we had the flu, if we were vomiting, if we felt horrible, if we felt so worn down that we couldn't get out of bed, we wouldn't say, I'm ignoring this. I'm turning off all those sensations. I'm ignoring the language of my body and what it's telling me. I'm going to get up, get dressed, and go to work and pretend that I'm not sick at all. I'm not going to whine about it. I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to put a smile on my face and pretend like nothing happened this morning. We wouldn't do that. We would be like, I'm calling in sick. I'm taking care of myself. I am not doing anything for anyone. People can take care of me. And that is what our menstruation's asking us. And it may seem like, how can I possibly ask people to do that for me every month? But we can. And it's the small things that we do that make the hugest shifts. So during my menstruation, I have no problem. As soon as it comes, whatever time of day it is, as soon as I see blood, I call my husband and I say, listen, it's day one. You got to figure out supper tonight. And it's now our pattern that he doesn't go, oh my God, I got to make supper. Instead, he's like, okay, got it, right? Like he knows this is part of the routine. It's not that I'm loading him up. It's that he's doing his part. He's making supper. I give myself full permission not to do any laundry. And trust me, majority of the time, nobody notices that I have not done laundry for them. They find enough socks. They rewear a pair of pants. Everyone survives without me having to do laundry. It's hard for me because I am someone who's a neat freak. I like my house nice and tidy. My work during my menstruation is, can I be still enough just to not care what my house looks like? Can I just know that during my bleed days, I'm not inviting people over to visit me? I don't need a clean house. If we run out of plates, there's paper plates. We will survive. And you know what? If it gets messy enough, the people that I live with in this home will do their part and put the dishes in the dishwasher. They will pick up after themselves. And if not, I will start to work at it when I come out of my menstruation. That has been really, really, really hard work for me, is to give myself permission not to do it all, and then not to also explode on others for not knowing that they need to do it because it's something that's important to me and not them. I have now had to really work hard at going, it's okay. It's okay that for these 5 days, there's destruction in our house. It won't last forever. And it's a beautiful thing that I just step back and allow myself to do nothing. And you know what? I feel good during my menstruation. I come out of my menstruation and I feel full of life and energy and excitement. I'm friendly. I'm happy. Another big boundary that I've really been practicing this year when it comes to my menstruation, which was really profound for me, and it was really profound for the women that I was working with at the time in my fertile program, was that my period this year was going to happen on the Friday of Thanksgiving weekend. And so I made the hard decision. I called my mom and I said, listen, I'm going to start bleeding on the Friday of Thanksgiving weekend when I'm supposed to be at your house. I can't take on anything. I don't want to cook. I don't want to clean. I don't want to take care of my own kids. I've already told my husband that he's going to have to take care of our kids because I'll need to rest. I'm bringing a book and I just need to relax and do nothing. I really feel like this last cycle, I did a lot of running around. And if I don't care for myself now, it's going to wreak havoc when I get into my next cycle. So I really can't do anything. And so if we're going to have a lot of family over and a lot of friends over, just know I'll probably sneak away and I'll go to bed early. Know that I'm not going to be very social, and know that I cannot care for anybody else's kids. I'm really sorry. I love my nephews. I love family, but I cannot care for anybody else. And I said, is that going to be okay for you? And she said, you know what? Let's plan a different weekend. And I said, sure, that sounds good. Because you know what? It's just a weekend. My kids, yes, they were learning that it was about Thanksgiving weekend in school and they were excited about it. But we just said, you know what? We have to celebrate it 2 weekends from now. It'll be fine. And we did. And you know what? It made no big difference. We still celebrated as a family. We still had the big meal. We had lots of laughs. We had a really good time, made excellent memories. And it wasn't at the cost of me. And it wasn't at the cost of my health and my wellness and my sanity. And it was a hard boundary to set because it was the first time I ever did that. It was the first time I ever kind of counseled myself out of a holiday for myself. I put myself first. And it was the best decision I made. And I will do it every time there's a holiday now. I don't know if I'll get away with it for Christmas, but I will allow myself to set the boundary to do less. And so I encourage everyone here who's listening to this, that if you're somebody who struggles with your period, if you're somebody who struggles with enjoying being a cyclical woman and you're just on this countdown of how many more years do I have to bleed, I encourage you to start thinking about, how can I reframe my thoughts around my period? What is the real story going on here? Why do I actually hate it? Is it because of physical symptoms? Is it because of some kind of imprinting of, like I said, like how I held shame and that feeling of dirtiness? Is there some kind of ancestral imprinting that's happened here that I'm carrying something that is really not my reality? And what do I need to come into a place of love and self-compassion and deep, deep care? And yes, we might not be able to call in sick on the first day of our period. We might have to show up at work. We may have to still parent potentially. But what kind of things can we put into place so that we can also care for ourselves? Can we go sit in our vehicle at lunch to remove ourselves from the sounds of the office? Can we say, you know what? I'm going to need to go and do a yoga nidra, or I need to go take a nap. I'm just going to put my kids in front of a movie and I'm not going to worry about how much screen time they had. Can we do stuff for ourselves in these little tiny little mini pockets that may feel like they are insignificant? But trust me, they have strong punch to their power if we just take the time to welcome it in. Welcoming in more rest, welcoming in more stillness, allowing ourselves to be less than what we feel like we should be. And so I invite you to play with this. I invite you to be curious about, what story am I telling myself during my period? What is it that I hate about my period? And how can I reframe all of that so that I feel better about being a cyclical woman? How can I shift my thoughts so I can see the gifts, or I can see how doing the work here, and it's funny because the doing the work here is doing nothing. That's the work, doing absolutely nothing. So how can I do nothing in trusting that it's going to help me have a better period next cycle? And am I willing to open myself up to play with that? Am I open up to putting myself first, my wellness first, setting some boundaries, asking for help, and doing nothing for anybody else? That's your task this week. All right. let's take this conversation back into the Facebook group and let's chat. How did this land for you? Does it feel like it's doable? Or are you like, whoa, this is hard work right here, reframing my period? And if you're someone, like I said, who no longer has a bleed, let's also talk about that in the Facebook group. Let's talk about how this might have triggered a bit, or maybe this made you feel a little bit sad that your period is gone. And know that that's normal. Sometimes we want something so deeply bad to be gone, and then when it's gone, we're like, well, actually, you know what? I don't think I actually wanted that. But just know that you've done so much, and there's still so much ahead of you here. And we're going to be diving into so many layers of that over these coming weeks and months of just looking at the absolute beauty and amazingness of the female body. The cycle, it is a sacred vessel. It is something that holds so much potency and power. And we are going to tap into that. We're going to learn about it. And we're going to start weaving it into so many different aspects of our life so that we feel so deeply empowered. And we move through life with curiosity and with inspiration of knowing we are now in alignment with who we are and we're living our best life. Are you excited about aligning to your cycle? If so, make sure that you subscribe to this podcast and like the episode if it really resonated with you. Until next time, remember, womb wisdom equals connection to self, which ultimately equals inspired living.